it is time.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So it's been a minute since the last Pokemon video, so I thought it's about time for another one. Game Freak is notorious for having bad shinies, and the eeveelutions are unfortunately no exception. I mean, look at poor Leafeon over here, that's just unacceptable. I say it's about time we redesign it since clearly they won't. So let's get started. To start this project off, we're grabbing some tinfoil, aluminum foil, or aluminium foil, and squishing it into the approximate cranial size of a little grassy Pokemon. I do this because with inflation, clay costs my left kidney, so we want to save as much of it as possible. Secondly, with how bubble-headed Pokemon tend to be, we don't want this guy to flop over from too dense of a noggin.
Dude.
Once I have the shape I want, it's time to prepare the clay. Once the clay has been softened, I take a thin sheet and haphazardly cover the foil ball. I just want to get the clay on there to start pushing it around and forming that recognizable shape. Though I must admit, don't get too attached to this little guy, as it was pretty clear to me early on that I was actually making the wrong Pokemon, and in the wrong size too, so he had to go. Honestly, I just hated how it was looking already, and though it pained me, starting over was the best option. So with a new cranial ball and some clay, we get right back to about where we were. Looking back, I'm not sure this head was actually much better, as I think the end result was inspired by a certain little doggo of mine. Even though I do it often enough, cute things are just difficult for me to get right, especially the I'm adorable, give me treats eye shape, and also have them not looking something a little bit demented. But you guys like these types of videos the most, so here we are. With the eyes done, we carve out a itty bitty treat sniffer, which is also known as a nose, though I do hear sometimes it's called a snootums, which is also an acceptable term. When making the mouth, I try to go for an expression in between not smiling too hard that it's creepy and resting bitch face. A neutral, it's chill expression, if you will. With the mouth done, the head is complete and it's time to work on the ears. Since Leafeon has such big ears, I'm going to use tinfoil again as a base for the structure. I try not to overthink the shape and keep it organic, well, as organic as a fantasy pocket monster can be, to give a nice flowing leaf shape to the ears. I'll also be using cosplay this time around, as it's amazing stuff that remains flexible once baked, and I am, if nothing, but a constant time bomb of knocking things over. To give the clay leaf texture, I use this patent-pending leaf texture maker, as well as the stem carver scraper. Only $19.99, folks. I also made his little face leafy thingy off camera. You've seen me make feet countless times, and if you haven't, maybe go watch some other videos to see that wonderful feet footage. But basically, you take a blob, you score a blob, little shaping here, little shaping there, and
boom, bam, bop, bada bop, boom, pow.
Bam, you got some feet. Once baked, it's time for some good old ASMR time. To attach the head to the armature, I fill the cranial hole with goop, also known as hot glue, and secure the armature in place until it cools off, because that way it's not going to go anywhere, it's going to stay secure in place. Once that's done, it's time to start building up that body. Think of this as little Leafeon hitting the gym to build up his muscles so he looks a little less like a Skelly Bob. Or you could use quilt batting instead and just wrap strips of it over and over onto the body. I mean, that's also an option. That's the less fun way though, if you ask me. Remember not to build up the body too much because he's going to need his fur added on top, which is going to add additional thickness. But like I always say, if you want chunk boy, you go and you get chunk boy. If you want thin boy, you go and you get thin boy. Okay, we support all body shapes and sizes here. Once he's done hitting the gym, it's now time to add fur over that body. And I'll be using this super soft white faux fur since I plan to do some airbrushing later. Now, like I always say, there is no logic to my method of sewing. Simply eyeball everything and hope it works out. I cut an unknown size of fur the length of the body, put my hand in the way so you can't see that I'm cutting slits for the legs to slide through, and trimming it down so it's nice and snug around the patient to start stitching them up. It helps to have them sedated first, but to each their own. You may sometimes have to put Pokemon in pretty odd positions for sewing, but as long as you trust the process, it'll all work out. I do plan to fur the face to match this sewn body, but it helps to base coat it first. So I'm going to coat this in a color I want the final doll to roughly be around. Hey, you remember in the last video when I said it's time to jump into painting, which is a little unusual for my channel because normally I tend to do that at the end, but I'm trying to teach myself to go ahead and start doing that at the beginning. Well, guess who already forgot that? It's me. I did. I forgot. I didn't do it. After delicately applying fur to the face, we arrive oh my god. It's fine. It's fine. We can fix it in the next step, which is grooming. More specifically, using a pet shaver to trim down and tame the floof and hope this magically doesn't look like garbage when I'm done. In all seriousness, the pet shaver is such a great tool to have when making these kinds of things, as it just gets the fur off quickly and evenly. But even still, I go back in with scissors around the legs to make sure they actually look like, legs and not mangled stumps. I decided it was probably a smart idea to draw out the shape of the tail. So with a paper and pencil, I traced the line of the wire for reference, because references, people, references. And I sketched out a rough shape of a leafy tail. I cut that pattern out and traced it onto felt, making sure to not even follow the lines that I drew. Go me. Great job. Once I cut out 2 pieces, I essentially sandwiched the wire in between them with a helping dose of hot glue. The wire ended up acting like a kind of leaf stem for the leaf, which I absolutely planned, and there was no way that I didn't know that that would actually happen. But it also stays posable too, so win-win. Oh, before we continue, we can't forget to add the ears on. Now we can finally add color to Leafeon. For that, I use a dual action gravity feed airbrush, which is just fancy talk for an airbrush where you put the paint in at the top. I start with a tannish color for the body and fade to a brown at the legs. So the main shiny aspect is gonna come from the ears and tail. I want to give this guy a more fall vibe. Since Game Freak hasn't wised up into giving Leafeon seasons, I will. I'll be going through all the colors of a leaf's journey to death, from rich greens to dark reds. I'll then use brown to accentuate the inner ear of, well, the ears, and the wire stem in the tail. We can't forget to paint the eyes and nose. I started with a black base, which in a couple seconds I'm going to immediately regret. Ah yeah, there's the regret. Once my rage was done, I fixed it. I then dry brush and stipple lighter and lighter shades of brown to simulate life behind those eyes. But spoiler alert, there's not. I'm not Frankenstein, I can't do that. They then get a nice thin coat of resin to make them extra
glossy.
The last step is to add a few more dying leaves around the legs and chest for some extra flair. And with all that, the little grass type eeveelution is complete. I'm just kidding, because I hated the eyes and I redid them, and I'm still not quite sure I like those either, but it is what it is. So let's just go on to the final montage, shall we?